SC Media and our sponsor, F5, are proud to present this month's CISO Stories program. This is the show where CISOs share tales from the trenches and unpack leadership lessons learned along the way. Find this month's CISO Stories content at CISOstoriespodcast.com. Are you a cyber professional who enjoys writing policy documents or building checklists or creating documents from scratch? Do you have endless amounts of time and money to focus on developing tools and templates, or would you rather do the work of protecting your organization? The Cyber Risk Collaborative has developed new resource toolkits, which are CISO developed and topic curated guidance, tools, and templates to save your team tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours of work. Visit CISOstoriespodcast.com/CRC to sign up for the community and get your toolkits. Greetings, everyone. Welcome back for another month's episode of CISO Stories Podcast. You got myself, Jess Hoffman, your host, and we have Jennifer Selby Long with us today, who has a very impressive, interesting background. You've been all over the world working with Airbnb. I think you said TikTok too. Really cool. So awesome to have you on the show. How you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it's beautiful. And we'll talk about the Phillies later, but let's jump into you. This month's episode and our theme for is about Security Awareness Month. Everybody knows October is Security Awareness Month. Uh the climate's a little interesting this month, but it's all good. We still need to be aware about security. I mean, that never stops. I know in your role, as we were talking, you do a lot of coaching and advisement and professional services for CISOs and other leadership where cybersecurity is very important to ensuring that not only that the organization's data stays safe and operations stay safe, but just bringing that awareness and getting that buy-in from those folks that really pull the purse, right? And they're the ones that say yay or nay when it comes to procurement, when it comes to getting resources and all that. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get into this role and what do you do? How do you get through this every day? I imagine the CISOs really need a lot of help.
Well, I've had this business for 28 years. And prior to that, or early on, I was studying to be a college professor of all things. And I was studying how it is that some people are able to get others to follow them when in my mind, I was kind of like, how on earth would anybody follow that person? And so we were studying that stuff in depth, but I finished that degree and then I thought, well, what the heck am I going to do with this in the real world? And, instead I wound up in IT, in knowledge management, which is how eventually I wound up also working in cybersecurity because it was part of IT at that point in time. And so a little, fast forward a few years and I was able to actually use that graduate degree when I was sitting down with my first client at my new job where I was, had been there 2 whole weeks. And this was, again, cyber was part of all of IT then. And my boss said, go up to 27. Engineering needs you to do a training program for something. And so I sat down with the guy who had called for a trainer. And I said, okay, you need the engineers to start using this new tool that they're not using, right? He said, yeah, it's been in place for a while and they're just not using it. And I said, okay, great. Tell me the steps in the process because training makes you better at doing things, right? So tell me the steps in the process. So Jess, there were 3 steps. That was the whole thing. Engineers execute way, way harder processes than a 3-step process, right? So I finally got to pull out that hat from grad school and go, well, let's figure out why they're not adopting this. Why they're not using this when we know it's definitely better for the company. It was actually more secure. It was better for backup. Yeah, hypothetically, they lose a little control, but what's going on? And so we started digging into why is it that people aren't doing what they know they're supposed to be doing, which is an awful lot like cybersecurity, isn't it? We
Absolutely.
we
And
know
I just
what.
love that. The psychology part of it, that's huge right now. The human element,
Yeah,
why do people do what they
yeah,
do? The psychology.
it's
I mean,
huge.
there's majors right now about,
Yeah,
understanding the human mind. You mentioned before about like empathy too.
yeah.
So in your roles with your coaching and your support there, the security awareness programs are just resources needed to build a strong
Wow. Yeah.
cyber defense, cyber program. How have you seen that organizations? How have you helped organizations be able to explain that the meaningful impact of having those resources, having those tools, having that budget when it relates to
Mm,
cyber? How have you helped some of these executives or
yeah.
clients, get that across the leadership?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a great question because it is really hard. And let's face it, if you can't get budget for the training that you need and for the other programs that you need to further adoption, it doesn't matter that you're right. Like you're probably right. I would say to all of your listeners out there, you know your stuff, right? You and your leadership team have probably come up with a great solution for the organization. But the challenge is getting those people with the power of the purse to buy into it. And that is the starting point. And I'm going to say something that probably sounds like it has nothing to do with cyber, but it has everything to do with cyber, which is how well do you know the business? Not your business, but the business that you're part of. And think about it. If somebody came to you and said, you know, I think you should give me money to do, fill in the blank. And they didn't know anything about you personally. They didn't know what made you tick. They hadn't bothered to ask any questions about what you do, what you lead, what's going on, what's a challenge for you, what's a big deal in your world. How inclined would you be to say, yeah, sure, of course? Not really. So developing empathy with the leaders is a really vital first step. And by empathy, I don't just mean in our classic sense of empathy, which is understanding how they feel, reading the room. That is super important, but it's also empathy with their unique situation, the goals that they've been tasked with. A lot of your decision makers are not the CEO. They too are driving change that they might not have chosen, right? They're the VP level. VPs and directors have the power of the purse strings in most places, not E suite, not the very tip top, because those people have delegated that down. And so they're also under a lot of pressure on things that they may or may not have decided, was what they really wanted to do. So take that time to get to know the business. For those who want it, I've actually created a little self assessment, just a little PDF that you can fill out answering some questions to see how well do you know this. Because the single biggest mistake that I find CISOs make is they talk to business leaders from their perspective, from the perspective of risk and the perspective of technology. And general counsel's probably going to relate to that because all day they spend all day thinking about risk. Sales, maybe not so much. Marketing, product development, retail, not so much. They're not really thinking so hard about risk. And so it becomes really difficult to start from there. You really have to start with what's going on for them in their business and their part of the business, and then connecting what you do to that. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to say for our listeners too that we're the topic this month, security awareness. It's October. We all know what this month is. But Jennifer and I, we're talking about not traditional the training that maybe at the end users or even role based training, but we're talking about, and I think this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
We've moved it to say a training as far as the importance of cyber in order to get things done, right?
there
In
you
order to
go.
get the buy-in, in order to get the support, the
Wow.
resources, stakeholders to support you, that sponsorship, and that's training too.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
like, yeah, Jennifer
Oh,
or
yeah.
Jen, one end, everything you're saying. I mean, it's still training, it's still security training, it's still awareness because we need everybody to buy in. And I love to say We get excited about cyber, but
Yeah,
really we can't get excited about a program that we don't have. So we need money, we need resources. So when you're in these,
totally.
what's something that you've said? If you recall, what give us a direct Jen Selby Long quote that you've said to these CISOs to tell their leadership? What language have you told them that would
Uh-huh.
inspire their stakeholders, their execs, that to get that sponsorship, to get that buy-in, to understand the importance, the urgency?
Yeah. I think maybe it's a little less about one absolute go-to statement as connecting what you say to their business. So the reason this is important for you to achieve the sales goal is, all right. The reason that this is important for you to achieve your HR goals or your engagement goals is, um, be sure to draw out their concerns. I think this is something we're terribly afraid of on the technology side. We want to power through a presentation or a training program or whatever it is and get to the end and go, made it. But in fact, it's dialogues that really make it happen, right? It's dialogues. It's actually asking them, what concerns do you have about this program? Say it's something simple. You want to do a phishing campaign, but you're getting this sense that they're not excited about it. Or that they feel like it's a distraction from the business, or maybe it won't work. You know, the mistake is to go through your own head with the voice in your own head going, oh, it must be that they're bored with phishing campaigns and they think it won't do much. No, you ask, right? And that sounds so obvious when I say it, but it's really hard to do in the moment because we're so wanting to power through. Well, we have worked so hard to prepare for these people, but stepping back to say, hey, what are your reactions to this before you're to the end? Hey, what concerns do you have? What could get in the way of this being effective? You know, when you're talking to business leaders, you're talking about people who are just inherently born to problem solve. And so they really don't want to pitch. They really, really, really don't want to pitch from anybody. They want to get in there and be able to solve problems. And they want you to solve problems for them, but they also want you to draw out what do they see as problems and challenges that you can help them with. There's another piece of this that I would say is pretty powerful. And there are times when, as a CISO in particular, you have to be able to say, look, frankly, this is not directly connected to the margin pressure that you're under this quarter. I get it. All right. I get it. To just acknowledge that you are asking for something that's above and beyond what they're primarily focused on right now. You just have to be pretty open and honest about that because that's empathy, right? That's acknowledging the pressure that they're under now and that you're asking them to do this anyway. And in addition, I have to say the other big opportunity, although we all hate them, it's incidents. An incident is this wonderful, horrible moment. We all know how horrible an incident is. I don't have to explain that to anybody, but it's also wonderful because there's this brief moment when the door is open to changing behaviors that wasn't open before. All right. People were going, this cyber stuff, it's just overhead. Can't they just deal with it without us? Do we really have to cough up some money for it? You know, you have an incident and everybody's scared. And you can trace it back to what needs to be funded that has been up for funding for a while. And to be able to do that with that wonderful CISO objectivity versus, see, I told you should have fund this and you said no. But really, again, it's playing into the strengths of a CISO. CISOs are almost without fail cool under pressure, calm headed, rational people. And
They
so,
need to, they
yeah,
better be, or they're not going to last very long.
right?
And
Who
incidents. I
Bingo.
think you're onto something here,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you brought that up because the saying "never let a good incident go to waste," and
Yeah.
a lot of there's even controls related to incident response and continuously monitor or contingency planning testing, but really
Yeah.
taking a real incident that's happened in your organization
Yes.
or even another organization is a fantastic way to bring
Yeah.
security awareness to your team, to your stakeholders, to your
Yeah.
leadership, and 110% agree that that's an opportunity. It's always better when somebody else, right?
Yeah.
When it's somebody else that has their 911 was breached, and you're like, okay, you don't want that to happen to us, right? Let's go
Yes.
ahead and fill these gaps.
Yes.
Get these tools, get these
Yeah.
people whatever
Yeah.
resources, because we don't want to end up like that. But at the same time, like that is security awareness training. That is
Bingo.
bringing awareness, and in our context talking about leadership. So is that
Yeah.
something that you do talk to your clients about, like using
Absolutely.
those real world scenarios and
Absolutely.
situations to further your case and help their stakeholders understand the severity and again the urgency of cybersecurity?
Absolutely. It's that moment to pounce because they're gonna be more open there.
You said pounce. I love
Pounce.
it. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Pounce. And there is something that we're really seeing quite a lot of evidence for in neuroscience, that is actually a part of many faiths around the world, which is this notion that in every seemingly bad situation, there's actually a gift. And so that incident, especially if it is inside your own company, that incident is definitely going to feel like a bad situation, but the starting point is internal. It's not what you say outside, it's what you say to yourself, which is what is the gift in this? What is the opportunity that I might be able to leverage to drive some more change, to get a little more funding for these things that I know we need for this training, right? Because like lots of like getting people excited about doing their cyber training. If your senior executives aren't excited about it, right? It has to have some executive sponsorship. And so those incidents can be wonderful opportunities. And you know, I have a client who was a nearly brand new CISO. It was his first time role as a CISO. He changed industries to do it, and he moved into journalism, as the industry that he was supporting. And so, what a huge burden. He had to make sure he kept journalists safe all over the world, right? That if they were unduly arrested in a hostile country, that no one was going to find anything on their phones or their laptops. Um, Huge. And that was just one of his many responsibilities there. And do you know, within 5 months of starting, significant incident. Now, he could have said, hey, those were all decisions to CISO before me. But he didn't. He said, here's an opportunity to crack open the door. Yes, we were in conversations during this time and talking about what's the opportunity here. And he recognized that this is that moment when I can get people open to some things that I've been asking for, that, they've been fainting because it costs more money than they're used to spending. And maybe they're going to be a little more open. And so he made sure to really connect the dots between preventing this from happening again and making these investments. And, it worked. It worked.
Yes.
People who said, we
I
have no money,
Yeah.
we have no money, we have no money, we have no money, suddenly went, okay, I
We
can,
have money.
yeah, money.
We
I
have
can put
money.
off doing that one thing and get you some money. Yeah. So never, never let an incident go to waste. If all you
That's
do is
right.
resolve the incident, I think it's a wasted opportunity. Make something bigger and better come out of it.
You just mentioned something too, backing it up a little bit about if your leadership isn't excited about cyber, but you mentioned specifically if your leadership isn't excited about their cyber training. Now, nobody, I don't know hardly anybody that gets excited for that mandatory annual cybersecurity awareness training, and that is not effective. We just know that's not
Yeah.
effective. Once a
Yeah.
year is not enough time to be speaking to our workforce, to our end users, whatever that looks like. Ongoing training, circular learning is is so
Yeah.
incredibly important. So I think you just made a really good point that, again, we need that buy-in from our leadership in order for anything we do from a cyber
Yeah.
perspective, including
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
awareness on the level to get the
Yeah.
support and the sponsorship,
Yeah.
down to our folks, who's performing the work in the trenches. So let me ask you this too, because as executives, we have competing priorities, and you just even said it, like, oh, well, we had an incident, we have a situation. Oh, we didn't have money before, but miraculously, we can do without this one thing now because, clearly we need to readjust. And, that's in reality, that's how it's happened. Security, I think, has come a long way over the years, mainly
Agreed.
because of all the incidents that hit the
Agreed.
paper. But for a long time, security was an afterthought. It was an add-on. It wasn't even its own group or division or
Yeah.
department within any organization.
Yeah.
So, competing priorities
Yeah.
is a real thing. I mean, right now, my brain is like totally fried. I can't even start to tell you all the things I have to do
Yeah.
in my position right
Yeah.
now. So we got to prioritize. So, what are some of the ways that you've helped your clients, talk to their executive leaders or the folks that hold the purse, to get them to make security a priority, not just when an incident happens, but to get their attention and make them aware, again, just going back to how important security is. We might not have an incident now, we may not have an incident tomorrow, but we need to make sure that we are in the
Yeah.
right position to be able to
Yeah.
be proactive, to not have an incident, right? To throw it off that threat
Mhm.
actor, understand our threat landscape, understand the risks to our particular business, but really, looking forward thinking and like, we want to be able to be proactive, but also reactive. How have you coached some of your
Yeah.
clients, some of those CISOs to maintain that attention and keep
Yeah.
security awareness, security program
Mhm.
as a forefront, fresh, in the
Yeah.
executive's mind and
Yeah.
prioritize them?
Yeah, yeah. So it's a great question, and I would agree 100%. It's not easy, and it's not just like one thing that is gonna make that incredible result happen for you. But we've mentioned empathy. Are you really investing, putting the emotional investment in to understand them? Secondly, what are you doing to build the relationship on a steady cadence? One thing about business executives that we know from a personality point of view is that the majority of them are naturally steady cadenced people, with the exception of sales. Sales tends to be a little more like in the moment. On the whole, that like nobody, if anybody in sales is listening, you're like, well, I'm very cadenced. I get it, I get it, I get it. I'm saying at the herd level, we're having to make some guesses, and so really working on that empathy, getting into a cadence, recognizing, from what I've seen of the CISO crew that I've worked with, it's a less cadenced crew, and I'm not surprised. You have to be, you're constantly running the sock, you've constantly got stuff coming at you. But are you on a steady cadence with your business leaders, with your stakeholders? By which I mean, are you kind of inviting yourself, getting yourself invited to, say, quarterly ops reviews for them and embedding security into their steady cadence of a quarterly ops review? It sounds so dull. But believe me, to your business leaders, this is one of their most vital meetings. Why are you not there? Right? Why are you not there? You're going to learn so much about what moves these unique individuals in each of these groups. You're also going to get to know the influencers. We tend to get, because CISOs particularly are just stretched so thin, it's easy to get really laser focused on the decision maker, right? The person with the power of the purse in each of these divisions of your business. But what about all those influencers around them who can become, as one of my CISO clients calls it, our friends? Those friends in the business units who will advocate on your behalf and who will naturally and almost effortlessly connect what you're doing to the business because it's easier for them to get it. Have you identified who those influences are, those friends? Are you investing in, again, I'm sorry, a steady cadence, like a drum beat every quarter, where you are attending their ops reviews, where you're contributing to the ops reviews, where you're doing an update? It's more than just going out with your dog and pony show when you join a company. It's about getting into that steady rhythm that businesses have and being part of it. And at first you probably have to invite yourself to the meetings and say, I'd love to sit in, understand your business better. But after one or two of those, you can start saying, I think I have something to contribute to your ops review that I think is going to be really valuable. Would you be open to? Now, there, you asked for specific language. One thing we do not use enough in leadership is the question, would you be open to? Would you be open to having me come? Would you be open to hearing about this option? I get that you've told me you don't like it. Would you just be open to hearing more about it?
I like that. It's like you're
No,
giving them a choice, which usually I'm not
exactly.
giving them a choice. We're
Right.
coming over. We're
Right.
gonna be over there
Right.
speaking to you about what you did
Right.
last month, last week, what
Yes.
you clicked on. But yeah,
Yes.
I love that. Would you be open to, Jennifer? Would you be open to it? I love
Yes.
it.
Yeah, and even when you ask me that, I think, oh, Jess wants a dialogue. Yes, sign me up. Let's talk about this. And so again, business leaders are natural problem solvers. And so it's a dialogue. Would you be open? Sure, I'd be open to hearing more. And now you're open to hearing their concerns. I will add a couple of things that are from actually the world of personality type. They are not going to apply to all of your executives, but let me tell you, I believe half of all executives at least are of this personality type or this temperament as it's known. And they are called the traditionalists. And if you can get the traditionalists on board with something that you want to do around cyber awareness that is different from what has been done, the entire organization will go the way of the traditionalists. The way of the traditionalists, because the traditionalists are not the people bouncing into the room going, hey, I just had the most brilliant revolutionary idea. And everyone's like, oh God, this is going to be so much work. They're the ones going, oh, this is going to be so much work. And so you should probably assume that you're going to need to get a bunch of traditionalists on board. And first and foremost, that means never jumping in with, hey, the way we did it at my last company was such and such. Or, oh God, it's like nails on a chalkboard. Like you're not even bothering to learn anything about what is unique or distinctive about this company and this culture that you're in now. So please never say that. The traditionalist will shut you down in a heartbeat. And a traditionalist who has shut you down is going to take a long, long time to open back up. Right? Memories like elephants. So don't mess with the traditionalists. Do not mess with them that way. Be saying the way we did this in my last company. Um, do sit down and ask everything about how this has been handled in the past that you might not be aware of. Because if you've been somewhere less than 2 years at the least, a lot could have changed, right? There could have been a whole lot that happened before you were there in that seat. Ask what did you do in the past? Why didn't it work? What did work? Again, memories like elephants. The traditionalist is the person who can tell you, well, I will never forget July 21st of 1998 when we tried to roll out once a year user training and then everybody took it. And the next week we had a major incident and it was all because a user let somebody in. And so they have phenomenal memories. And so instead of going, how annoying. These people who are always resisting me all the time. And I clearly have a good solution, but why are they always so resisting? And I think that's stereotyping the traditionalist in a way that's super unproductive and isn't going to get you far. What they are is risk managers, which should feel near and dear to your heart as a CISO. They love to mitigate risk.
Yeah,
They live to mitigate risk. And so they're just trying to mitigate risk here. And so they will help you de-risk yourself if you let them. So write down every concern.
definitely.
Right.
Definitely a lot of
Right.
different personality types that we have to deal
Right.
with in leadership in general, but as a CISO,
Yeah.
especially to get our points across. So we're coming
Wow.
here towards the end of
Wow.
time, but I know that went fast, right? We said it
Yeah.
would go fast though.
Wow. Thanks for the
I
warning.
yeah, well, a couple things, Would you be open to? I think that's something that we can all practice a little bit more and be sincere about it.
Yes.
We talked about not letting a good incident go to waste and how that's really
Yes.
important for leadership to use that in a positive way, not even just your organization, but maybe in another organization, your industry, in your town, but using that to be able to bring awareness to your leadership of why you need resources, why you need funding, people, why you need the support. Because sometimes it isn't just about fiscal or workforce members. It could just be support that you need to go to these conferences. You need to be out in the streets talking to people. You need to build these partnerships with your local government, with, other
Yeah.
industry partners. Support isn't always just about, or sponsorship from your leadership and your
Yeah.
stakeholders isn't always just about money and resources on your team. There's other things that we need to do in order. I believe you said in our prep call, cybersecurity, it's not an individual. What do you call it? It's collaborative, or what did you
It's a
call
team
it?
sport. It's a
Yeah,
team
it's a
sport.
team sport. It's a
Yeah.
community-based support,
Yeah.
absolutely. And when we're talking about cyber awareness, it's month of cybersecurity. We are, normally people think about, bringing awareness to the end users or to folks like don't click
Mhm.
on this, don't download this, don't respond to these phone calls, don't leave your desktop unlocked or laptop
Yeah.
unlocked, have your controls in place for your logical security, da da da. Totally relevant, totally needed, all that good
Yeah.
stuff. But we do need to make sure that we're bringing awareness at the human level, the psychology behind it. Why what is the business? You mentioned that. That's a really good
Well,
point. We need to understand people's business and what they're actually going what are they doing on a day-to-day basis, and then weaving in cyber awareness training and cyber support into that way. So I
well,
would love to ask you one more question, Jennifer.
sure.
Jen, I always ask all of my clients, you're a client now. You have clients.
All right. I would
You're
promote
my
him.
guest. Well, you're my guest. Fabulous
Aw.
guest. What would Jennifer Selby Long, what would you tell Jen? What would you tell your younger 18-year-old self? What advice would you give her?
Oh my gosh. Ha ha. I
Don't
would
think too
probably
hard.
say, I would say to my 18-year-old self, take more computer science classes for non-technical majors because there are a lot of us in and around the world of technology who took, I took two coding classes and found our way into it. And I was inexplicably intimidated by this notion of taking more technology classes. But why not? The world of cybersecurity in particular, it has a lot of people who majored in computer science, who majored in IT, but there are plenty of people who found their way to it through other paths. And so I guess that's what I would tell my 18-year-old self. Like, don't be intimidated by technology. Go take a few more of those classes and learn. And I could tell you, even the two coding classes that I took helped me understand and relate so much better to the technology professionals that I was supporting when I was in IT and knowledge management. Just having the two was a big help. But wow, if I'd taken a few more, especially some of those context classes around how does this fit into the bigger world? What do you use this for? Today, it would be, why does cybersecurity matter? Not just how does it get implemented, but why does it matter? Why is it an important thing? Those are such important things to learn. Be open
Yes.
to it. Don't be intimidated by
Great.
any subject or topic. Give it a
Yeah,
try.
great advice. I
Yeah.
hated programming. It was the worst, but I learned if then, if left, else,
Bingo.
else, whatever. So as we're wrapping up, if you don't see me, I have my Go Phils, zip up on. Whoops, I got excited. I touched the desk. Got it on. Okay, so if you heard my show with Rock Lambros, I predicted that the Eagles will win the Super Bowl. So I'm gonna go ahead and say it's Red October. Go Phils, we world champions. All right, World Series. I know we got a few games to go. Tom, our producer, Cubs fans, whatever. But I'm gonna go ahead and put it out there. We'll see what happens. You could correct me next month. But Jen, thank you so much for being on the show with us. Really appreciate all you're doing to support our CISO, support the C-suite when it comes to ensuring that cybersecurity awareness, training, support sponsorship is actually happening, because that is so critical to ensure that our programs are actually happening and we're safeguarding our data, especially in today's climate. We are at such risk of everything and anything with our critical infrastructure all the way down. So thank you so much for your service, Jennifer, Jen, Selby Long. We appreciate you on the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, take care. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you next month on another episode. Take care. All right, special shout out wanted to give to Benian Jamene. Sorry, I butchered your name, but met this kid at Harrisburg University Cybersecurity Summit this week, and he came up to me and said he was a fan. So thank you. There's our selfie. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate everybody that does. Please, if you see me on the street, say what's up. Thank you for tuning in for this month's episode of the CISO Stories podcast. We want to say a special thank you to this month's sponsor, F5. Learn more at cysostoriespodcast.com/F5. Please subscribe to the CISO Stories podcast, and you will receive a new episode on the second Monday of each month.